Welcome back to Despite Adversity. Last time we talked about some of the lessons that I've learned in the last 13 and a half years of battling this cancer diagnosis, and we still have a lot to go through. So this is part 2 of the lessons that I've learned. So let's get right into it. The first thing we got is be comfortable being uncomfortable. That one, those are words to live by for sure. And I live my life pretty much every day trying to do at least 1 to 2 things that make me uncomfortable every single day. And that's the only way that you're going to grow, is doing things where you put yourself in situations where you might not be comfortable. And it's not, staying home and watching TV or, hanging out in your backyard. It's going to that place or going to that social scene or that run club or, going against the grain and posting on social media, whatever it is. It's just doing something that makes you a little bit uncomfortable at first. And it takes a while for you to start getting comfortable. And then you got to start doing even more things and experiencing different things. So, you're never going to grow inside your comfort zone. You're never going to get better at running or basketball or baseball if you only focus on golf, right? So, just do things that make you uncomfortable so, you can grow in other aspects of your life. So that's something that I definitely live by. And when it comes to mental health, I was so uncomfortable even leaving my basement, leaving my bedroom, going to the grocery store, dinners, everything. So, that was really the mantra that I lived by, was doing 1 or 2 things every single day that I hated doing, that I knew that was good for me in the long run and, brought me out of my comfort zone. So, when I was in those really dark days and I didn't want to leave my comfort zone, going for a run or going to a dinner or hang out with friends or, going to the grocery store, driving, were all things that made me so uncomfortable. But I wouldn't have grown and I would have stayed in that shell of myself if I didn't push myself to be uncomfortable. So yeah, something that I live by every single day. And, that's one of the lessons here that, I 100% take advantage of and listen to every single day of my life. So, I do a lot of things that make me uncomfortable and are things that I don't want to do. So yeah, that's a good one to live by. Okay. This kind of goes along as well because it kind of in depth about some of the mental struggles that I had, but this one's easy. Face your demons. And that's another way of saying, be comfortable being uncomfortable, but you gotta face it. Like, again, when I was in that rut where, I was so anxious about doing anything, it just like you have to keep putting yourself in that position and keep facing your demons because they're not going away. Like, if you don't face it and you don't talk about it and you don't write it out, that mental cloud will be with you forever. So, again, you gotta work through it. You gotta talk through it. You gotta face it. I'm so against brushing things under the rug because it's not productive for anyone, for you or anyone around you. So you gotta face it. Keep showing up. And the best way to go about facing your demons is to just go. Take the first step. Put yourself in that situation. So, I remember when I had that seizure at the VIG, that was a place where I was extremely uncomfortable. Obviously, I mean that makes total sense, but I had to face it. I had to face the music, and I went back to the VIG and got dinner there, got brunch there, you know, hung out there late night, and that was a huge step for me. But in my head, there's a million alarms going off saying this place is not safe. Like, I remember what the bathroom looked like, and I mean, that's where I had my seizure. Like, that's where it took place. And you're just remembering every detail of that setting. And, it's tough. It brings you straight back mentally to that very moment. So, I mean, like I said, I showed up to the VIG 2 or 3 times. And I mean, I was, mentally, I was a wreck. I mean, I didn't show it on the surface, but it was just one of those moments where I went back to the scene of the crime, and I was shaking a little bit. So you got to face it. Um, yeah, I mean, those emotions will come rushing back if you don't face them. So just keep showing up and keep facing your demons, because they'll eventually go away. They'll realize that you're not going to put up with this. You're going to keep going, and this guy's not giving up. So, I went on a tangent there, but yeah, you got to face it. Okay, what do we got next? And again, these are lessons that I've been writing down since I was 20 years old. So it's been, 8 years in the making for this list. So, okay. So this one's more applies to the medical field of things, but also, like, the more I'm thinking about it, it applies to everyone. And, it kind of goes back to this delayed gratification that we all have, where, you work your job till you're 55 or 65, and you save up all this money just to start living your best life then. And, going on all these trips and experiencing life, when, you could have been doing that when you were more able, and you could run farther and faster and go more places and not be run down, and, climb that mountain or whatever it is. But you just had the capability in your 20s, 30s, and 40s to, experience even more that you can't experience when you're 65. Like, maybe you can't go skiing in the Swiss Alps as a 65-year-old, but you could have done it when you were 40. So this notion, the stigma that we all have is delayed gratification. But I mean, the lesson that I learned was, don't put your life on hold because of blank, right? Like, don't let anything hold you back from living your life. Experience everything that you can. I was so stuck in not experiencing life and not, making relationships, or, socializing or growing my network. And I was so scared that my next scan would be bad, or that I had to get more radiation or chemo, and, I wouldn't feel like I had all my wits about me, and feel like I wouldn't look good physically. So, I mean, there was just every excuse to not do the thing. Like, not go on that trip, not sign up for that race. There was just a million excuses, and I got to the point where you have to learn to not give those excuses out anymore. So don't put your life on hold for any reason. I don't care if it's a cancer diagnosis or a broken arm, like, whatever it is. Yeah, fix what's directly in front of you. But after that, like, live your life. So, so yeah, take that chance, live your life to the fullest, and just go out and experience this beautiful world that we live in. There is so much to do and see and experience, and there is something out there for everyone. So, yeah, go find it. Go find that passion. Next, we have learn to embrace and love the journey. So, this is one that took me a while, and again, something where it took me to my very mature years to accept this one, because it's hard to appreciate the journey, right? It's a catastrophic event that's life altering and near death, and it's hard to be thankful for everything that's happened. But I'm at peace with it now, and you go through it long enough where you finally come to terms with it, and you learn to embrace it and love it. So I'm so happy with the journey that I'm on, and everything that I've overcome, and you got to look back and see how far you've come. So yeah, gotta learn to embrace and love the journey. And yeah, just know that every journey is different. Everyone's at a different point in their lives, and everyone has a different mission and a different passion that they're on. So you gotta learn to love and embrace it. And if you don't, make that change. If you're someone that you don't like to look in the mirror, and you don't like to be around with or be by yourself, like, make that change. That's the one thing you have control over. So, I mean, you can't control your environment or anyone around you, but you can make that perspective switch yourself. So, and like I said, it took me a long time to make that mindset change of being at peace with it. But yeah, it's a long journey in anything that anyone's battling, and you never know what people are going through, just seeing them out in public. So you gotta respect the mission and the journey that everyone's on. So here's one that I just came up with on the spot as I was talking about that. And the lesson is, give your words some depth. And by saying that, I mean people's words mean basically nothing these days, where people talk a lot. They say they're going to do a lot of things, and be in the NBA or be in the MLB, or write that book, or start that podcast, or start that business, whatever it is. People say a lot of things. So my lesson is, give your words some depth back. Have your words mean something. Don't say you're going to do something unless you're actually going to. So it's almost, kind of be accountable and taking some ownership there. I mean, when I think about it, like, I want my word to mean something. Like, if I say I'm going to be at this place at this time, and that I'm going to, show up for run club, or start a podcast, or start that business, like, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to, half-ass it or not try it and, end up not doing it. And obviously there's nothing wrong with getting into something and realizing that it's not for you, but just have your words mean something is really a good lesson of mine. And I mean, it's also just a mindset change that's so easy to make. Like, just do the things that you say, or don't say them. So it's really easy, and it's an easy way to keep yourself accountable. So yeah, give your words some depth. I like that one. All right. The next one, and I mean, this just applies to me, but also, you can apply it to anything in life, but don't let your guard down. I learned this the hard way. I was on a strict keto diet and I was on carnivore before that and really dialed in my supplements and was really cautious on what I was eating and everything. So my diet was working. Why would I come off it? Yeah. And really the question that I had to ask myself was, can you live with the trade-off? And that really hit home because again, it's still a question that I asked myself today was it worth it? Was it worth switching my diet to train for the New York Marathon and run with my brother and have this once in a lifetime experience and, train as hard as I could with carbs and sugars and, be the best endurance athlete that I could be at that moment. So I don't know. It was pretty worth it. Was it worth the rounds of chemo? I don't know. Again, I'm still battling in my head about that, but man, it was one of the best experiences with my brother, and it was so special to me. So I really wouldn't. It's hard for me to think about letting go of that moment and not doing that. Like that. That was one of the coolest moments in my life, just to run that with my brother and just the whole setting, the city, everything. So yeah, I still don't think I would give it up. All right, on to the next one. This one's simple. Be humble. Like, again, I would not be in this position if I didn't have so much help and so much support. Like, you have to be humble in these moments, and I really can't praise the medical specialist, the nurses, my mom, girlfriend, and God enough. Humility it's a very important trait that I also had to mature and realize. So humility is one of the pillars of my life, and you have to be humble. It's you have to be thankful for everyone around you and everything you've been blessed with. So, and you just got to have that perspective. So be humble. Never never come off as arrogant to at least any strangers or random people in the street. Um, or just, again, be thankful for the success that you are having. So another quick one. Give back. So simple. But I mean, there's so many times where it's hard to get your head above water and think about fundraising or giving back to a charity that means something to you. Yeah, for me it was fundraising for Lady Children's Hospital, where I had brain surgery as a 15-year-old, and I fundraised for the New York City Marathon and the Chicago Marathon in the last 2 years. So was able to help fundraise over 20K between my team the last 2 years. So again, that's a that's a cause that deeply matters to me, and like that was integral in my life. So you got to give back, whether it's your community or a cause that has some effect in your life. I think that charity and donating is a huge part, or at least should be a huge part of anyone's lives. And it doesn't have to be financially. It can be, volunteering a couple of Sundays every year or once a year even. So yeah, I just always try my best to try to do that, and I encourage everyone else to. Easy as that. Give back. Okay. Another tough one. Don't lose the faith. And for a long time, my faith was a roller coaster to say the least, where I'd go through waves of, God is great and he's blessed me with the fuel to run fast and run far. And, he was giving me time in between treatments and chemo and stuff like that. And, those are times where I've had, great faith. But there's a lot of times when you're in really dark places where, it's hard to believe in anything good. So I've seen the worst, and I wish it didn't come to that point. But I mean, you got to always keep the faith. Like when I was in my worst moments and had all this anxiety, and it wasn't me basically, I turned to God, and that was one of the, and really that was one of the like pillars of me crawling out of that anxiety. So got to keep the faith. You got to always realize that there's a reason that all this is going on. So don't lose it. And you should see the cross above my left shoulder. So never losing the faith. This one's easy. Health is wealth. And that's so damn true. It's so easy to take health for granted when you're in your 20s and 30s and 40s. But man, your health matters, and it matters today, and it matters what supplements you're taking, what you're putting in your body, your diet, your drinking habits, whatever it is, like that stuff matters. And it took me all of this to realize that, like, what's the long-term plan? Like, how is this going to affect me in the long term? And that's kind of how my mindset is now. So I'm always thinking about longevity and, what it's going to look like down the line. So the example that I always think about is, I never want to be that guy who just turned 65 and accumulated all these assets and all these finances and is finally ready to live happy and then suffers a life altering, heart attack or a stroke or any life altering circumstance, and can enjoy everything that they just worked for. Like, yeah, it's kind of teeter tottering on the same thing of like, don't put your life on hold. But I mean, health is wealth. Like, you never want to be in a position where your health is jeopardized. Then, you got to take care of yourself. So, do some research and, figure out what the best plan for you is. And man, just treat your body like it matters, because it does. So I was talking about more physical there, but the same goes for your mental health. If you don't have mental health, then you have nothing. I mean, you can be the best athlete ever, and you walk onto a golf course, and when there's a crowd around and cameras, you miss all of your putts, or you have the shakes and you can't play as well. So I mean, your mental health has to be dialed in too, and you're anxious about everything. Then your physical health will start deteriorating too. So, I mean, it goes hand in hand. Where if you put good quality things in your body, that your mental health should also follow. So, yeah, I mean, if you don't have mental health, you have nothing. Like, same goes for your job. You won't get that promotion. You won't cultivate those relationships with coworkers or friends, or find a girlfriend, or find a wife if you can't, if you don't have those skills, or, are too anxious to leave the house, or, too anxious to socialize with the opposite sex, or whatever it is. So, yeah, I mean, again, you have to have mental health and physical health. And I mean, if you have both those things, you are extremely wealthy. Like, I don't care what your bank account says. If you have physical and mental health, like, I mean, you are so wealthy, and you can't take that for granted. Like, I mean, you have all the right scenario to just go do something great. So, yeah, definitely a lesson that I've learned, because I mean, I just have to watch everything that goes in my body these days. So, I have to take every advantage that I can, to be honest. So, okay. So, last one today. And I like this one. It's a good way to end. Okay. Nothing good comes easy. And that's, easier said than done, but if it came easy, then everyone would do it. Same thing with I mean, it applies to everything. It applies to hitting your sales goals, and in whatever industry you're in. If you're not making those 100 calls a day, and that's what the top performer does to hit goal, then I mean, it doesn't come without hard work. Like, anything great is going to take hard work, dedication. So, it's gonna make you grind for it. Like, any good book, or any good podcast, or any good TV show, there is hours of stuff in the background that you will never see, but it's all work to make sure that, everything runs smoothly. And, we only see the finished product, right? Like, I mean, same thing for any sport, or, guys are working so hard in the off season, and, practicing 24/7, and that's what they do all day. Like, I mean, and again, that's why they're on the PGA Tour, they're in the NBA, like, or they're in the MLB. It's a lot of hard work. And same thing goes for anything, like starting a business from the ground up. It's going to take a lot, and it's going to take a lot of hours that most people are not willing to work. So, you got to have that mindset going into things, that it's not going to be easy. Like, if you want to run that sub 3 hour marathon, it's going to take a lot of hours running out there. And that really just applies to, any goal that you're going to have. Like, if it's an easy goal and it can easily be attainable, then it's probably not a big goal. It's probably a goal that won't move the needle that much. And, I'm of the mindset that we need to have goals that are pretty close to being unattainable. And you just live with the end result because you put the work in for it. Yeah, I mean, whether it's your diet, training, mental health, professional growth, growing relationships, starting a business, everything takes hard work to be successful. So yeah, nothing good comes easy, and that's a good way to end this one. So again, I got just a couple more lessons that I want to talk about. And then, after that, we can start getting on some guests and doing some interviewing. So I'm excited about where this is going next. And I appreciate everyone who does listen to this. It's been a ride. It's only been like 10 episodes. So, but yeah, let's keep it going. And yeah, catch you in the next one. Peace.